Ella and my daughter were best friends, and Ella told my daughter everything. And some of that would trickle down to us as parents. And I didn't even really think much of this because the information was typically in the form of who liked which boys or who was dating whom. It never dawned on me that casually mentioning a previous double date that they had had would cause so much trouble. One afternoon, I ran into Ella's parents. We were neighbors and we were typically pretty friendly. And I casually mentioned something about this double date that the girls had gone on the week before. And the look on their faces told me everything. They had no idea what I was talking about, and they were not happy. They weren't angry with me, but they were very angry with their daughter. And I had just outed her, and they were furious. Well, later that night, my daughter let me have it. She said, "Dad, you're an idiot." And she told me that Ella's parents were the strictest parents she knew. Ella wasn't even allowed to be alone with a boy. She couldn't hardly do anything, and so she had to hide everything from her parents. And now, thanks to me, Ella was probably grounded for the next several weeks. And that's when I realized something about Ella. She wasn't just hiding, she was leaving. Her parents were trying to protect her, and they were losing her. And it all came from fear. They were afraid of all the what ifs. What if she was with a boy that would hurt her? What if she had sex? What if she got pregnant? What if she did drugs? And mind you, this was a really great kid, but her parents were so afraid that something bad might happen to her. Fear-based parenting usually doesn't feel like fear when we're doing it. It feels like protection. It feels like we're having boundaries with them. It even might feel like we're being a good parent. But when we parent by the what ifs, everything can go wrong. We all have the what ifs. What if they have sex, do drugs, fail school, run with the wrong crowd? What if we lose them? And these fears are actually real. I've felt them too. But my point is, when fear runs the show, it leads us to become overly controlling. And the more we control our kids, the more they will pull away. That is human nature. And that's exactly what Ella did. By the time she left for college, she had picked a school 3,000 miles away on the other side of the country, and she could not get far enough away from her parents. And by then, they had no idea what was happening with Ella. They didn't know anything about her life. They had no connection with her. They had no influence with her. Ella resented them, and she wanted nothing to do with them. Now, I know this is an extreme example, but fear-based parenting can show up in subtle ways too. It's not just about trying to control their behaviors. Sometimes we parent from fear because we're afraid of how others will see us. What will the neighbors think if our kids get in trouble? What if they think we're being bad parents? I've worked with some parents over the years who were more afraid of being judged than they were focused on what their child actually needed. When that fear creeps in, your child will then become a reflection of your success or failure as a parent or as a person. That is a huge burden to place on our kids, and it will always backfire on us. Another version of fear-based parenting is rescuing, fixing, overfunctioning. We call this being a helicopter parent. I once worked with a family whose son had stopped going to school. He was very bright and very high achieving. He was also a star athlete, but by the time they called me, he was skipping school, getting high every day, and refusing to do anything around the house. His parents had already sent him to rehab once, and when that didn't stick, they sent him again, and this time they promised him a car if he would go through rehab. I spent some time with this boy, and I saw the pattern immediately. He really resented his parents, and yet he also demanded that they help him. They were working 10 times harder to get him better than he was to get himself better. They were the ones texting me nonstop throughout the day. They were the ones making his breakfast, pleading with him to go to school, trying to stay one step ahead of every crisis that he might fall into. Well, the problem is he didn't want their help. He only wanted the lifestyle that they would give him, and then he blamed them for every problem he had. Sometimes we are working so hard to hold things together that we don't realize how much we're actually holding our kids back. When we overfunction for them like this, they never learn the critical life skills that they're going to need someday. They never get to learn from natural consequences that can teach them far better than any lecture we provide could ever teach them. Sometimes fear doesn't even look like control. Sometimes it looks like closeness, but it's a little bit too close. That's what we call enmeshment. Marcus was a boy that I worked with last year. His father, Tim, called and said Marcus had been spiraling. He was isolating, cutting on himself, failing school, and doing a lot of drugs. He had also recently begun talking about suicide. Tim and Tammy were divorced, and while Tammy was fine with letting me come work with Marcus, she mostly thought that Tim was just overreacting to everything. Well, I ended up spending 2 days with Marcus, and he's a very sweet boy, and he's very open with me, and he told me that he was depressed and that he felt suicidal. He felt hopeless about his future, and that's when he started self-harming. Marijuana was the only thing that helped him feel better, according to him, and he could not even get to sleep without it. Marcus also talked to me about being caught in the middle of his parents' awful relationship. He described his dad as really strict and inflexible, and he said his mom, quote, makes me too dependent on her. She did everything for him, and it felt like too much to him. On the other hand, when I talked to Tammy, she told me that she and Marcus were extremely close and that he confided everything in her. But that is definitely not how Marcus saw it. He felt pressured to talk to her and to take care of her. What she called closeness, he thought was smothering. Enmeshment is really tricky because it can look like love and it can feel like love and it masquerades as connection. But let's be clear, enmeshment is not connection. It's actually a surprisingly strong form of disconnection. Marcus felt burdened by his mom and that he was responsible for taking care of her emotional needs. He did not express a close connection with her, but actually wanted to get as far away from her as possible. This doesn't just happen in extreme cases. It happens every day. We rescue, we hover, we lecture, we fix, we step in when we should be stepping back. We do it because we're afraid. We're afraid our kids are going to get hurt. We're afraid of losing them. We're afraid of being rejected by them, or we're afraid of being judged by others. Well, what's the way out of all of this? It could just be a simple mind shift, a shift from parenting from fear to parenting from a place of love. Parenting from love means that we stay steady, even when our kids are struggling. And it means we focus more on our connection than on control. It means we listen more than we lecture. We definitely stop over-functioning for them. And we let our kids experience consequences without fixing it or rescuing from them. And we believe in their ability to solve their problems. I'm going to give you 8 mind shifts that can help you stop parenting from fear. Number 1, take a pause before reacting. Fear makes us move really fast, but slowing down gives us a little space to connect instead of control. It gives us a chance to think through things. Number 2, ask yourself, is this about me or is this about my child? Sometimes our reactions say more about our own fears, our own expectations, or our past experiences than about what our child actually needs. When you can name that out loud, in the moment, it can keep us grounded and present. Number 3, get curious instead of controlling. When you feel the urge to step in, just ask questions instead. What was that like for you? Or what were you hoping would happen? Listening builds trust, and understanding can do more than correcting. Number 4, make repair your default. If you react out of fear, and you will because we all do, just go back and own it. Apologize. What really matters most is what happens next. Number 5, look for signs of growth and say these things out loud. When your child handles something better than they used to, name it. Let them hear what you see. This will reinforce growth and build their confidence without pressure. Number 6, shift from outcome-oriented goals to connection. Fear focuses on results, grades, behavior, and performance, but connection focuses on the relationship. Ask yourself, how do I show up right now in a way that keeps us close, even when things aren't going well? This doesn't mean we don't have high expectations for our kids. Grades and performance do matter, but when they come from a place of fear and control, it will backfire. The relationship and connection must come first, and then the expectations come quite naturally. Finally, number 7, if fear keeps showing up in your parenting, do your own work around this. It could be about something unresolved in you. There's nothing wrong in reaching out for help, and the more healing you do, the easier all this will become. I've known a lot of parents who did their own work on their own issues, and it had a profound impact on their relationship with their children. This isn't about being fearless. It's just about not letting fear drive the relationship. When fear stops running the show, connection gets a chance to grow. I rhymed that. All right, I'll see you next time.